any more fluffy hair, okay? But there's a lot more happening up here. It's just, there's not a lot of hair, it's just hair in different places. And as it gets longer, it just goes in more crazier directions. Anyway, just like my uncomfortable transitions and stories that really don't relate to anyone besides myself, it has a lot to do with the fact that I am older than you think. I know I look 12, but you see this mustache coming in all day. Think I'm not? I remember when MTV actually had music videos playing 24/7, and the History Channel actually talked about history. Try me. Eyewitness News was my shit. Okay? But there's something that's slightly older than me, believe it or not, Mr. Ripley, and that's the damn truth. It used to be the top of the conversation in almost every single parking garage meet. It was a properly and well-documented discussion that made people dive into the platform of what we know today as Honda. I'm Alex at Instagram, and today we're gonna be talking about what happened to that little teeny tiny 4-letter acronym that was practically treated like a turbo in your $2,500 Prelude. A term that was memed to death, just like the iCanHasCheeseburger.com, which was the original foundation of the memes. Today we're gonna be talking about figuring out what exactly just happened to VTEC. If you're just jumping into this video, hello. If you're looking for aftermarket wheels, tires, or suspension, be sure to hit us up over at fitmentindustries.com. And if you haven't heard yet, we have launched our very own aftermarket wheel company called Artisa ArtFormed Wheels. Be sure to check that out if you are looking to pick up a set for your tuner car. Just saying, the Titans look killer on the SI platform, and we're talking about Hondas, and when you go up to 5 lug, the Titans look pretty damn sick. And drop a comment below on what you'd like to see us talk about next in this series that we're dubbing What Happened. Okay, now on to VTEC, which was like, wah! And then you'd slam it on the ground and VTEC will kick in and you'd hear, wah! It was really, really exciting. And if you haven't been a part of it, you are missing out on life. VTEC, or Variable Valve Timing and Lift Electronic Control, which is essentially not actually VTEC, they just cut a letter out because it sounded better, was a system developed to practically replace a turbo. Kind of. Kidding. Don't get mad. The year was 1989, and Honda was doing an excellent job providing fantastic cars to both legacy and new markets around the world. They had gone global, and they were doing an excellent job, specifically here in the United States, with the cars that they were producing. But Honda was trying to find new and exciting ways to take their value propositions, affordable, reliable, power comfortable, 4-6-cylinder platform, into an even higher tier of performance without sacrificing anything that made them who they were. In 1990, the Honda Accord was the best-selling car. Used. I mean, it was fantastic. I used it to drift in high school with lunch plates. When Honda developed their NCE program in 1984, it would eventually birth the Variable Valve Timing system that introduced additional power, fuel economy, and one hell of an exhaust note to anyone with a Honda badge. This was a really big deal, and it was a monumental success for the program. And in the simplest of ways, VTEC is implemented by the use of cam followers on dual overhead cams by either low-speed cams or high-speed cams. Really simple. Engage one or engage the other. You'll commonly hear people discuss a 2-stage VTEC, and no, that's not a random internet thing that some Honda boys started because they were tired of Subaru boys talking about stage 5 turbos.
What these lug nuts are used for is when a car pulls up next to you at a red light, you hit the button on the dash and they shoot out, pop their tires, and that makes sure you always win.
This is actually a real thing, and it was literally just a low stage or high stage cam system that mechanically switched the cams at a specific RPM on the engine. Over time, VTEC would evolve from only changing valve lift to add something called a cam phaser to the intake camshaft so it could change the timing as well, continuously and at any sort of variability. This would lay the framework of the dual overhead cam VTEC. Now there's also single overhead cam VTEC. Hold down! We'll get there. There's a lot. And you think there's enough acronyms, you'd probably be wrong, okay? Honda would go out to introduce all different variants of VTEC. You had dual overhead cam VTEC, iVTEC, which was just with direct injection. You had different VTEC systems. So on the single overhead cam, you had the equivalent on the single overhead cam, which was more for fuel economy than it was for performance, even though they introduced some performance. And through the use of an inactive intake valve on single overhead cams, Honda figured out a way to just pretty much turn it on. Through VTEC, reactivate that intake valve and change their 4-cylinder from a 3-valve 4-cylinder to a 4-valve 4-cylinder. It was a pretty exciting time for Honda. They really found a neat thing. Now, Honda friends and family are very particular about what kind of VTEC you have and how you reference VTEC at all. Take a shot every single time I say VTEC. You had single overhead cam. You had the Earth Dreams V6, which also had the iVTEC, but it is in fact not the same and is a 3-stage VTEC, essentially combining all their technologies together. Take a shot every single time I say it, I swear to God. Honda really found success with this new engine technology, so much so that they'd go on to create the dual overhead cam VTEC, dual overhead cam iVTEC with Camp Phaser VVT, dual overhead cam iVTEC I with direct injection. Then they had something very interesting named Earth Dreams I equal VTEC with Atkinson cycle feature and normal output, and a version with only intake valve only VTEC, which was the true VTEC without the Atkinson cycle. They had different variations of even that they introduced onto the platform. Single overhead cam got VTEC, VTEC/E, 3-stage VTEC, V6 VTEC. On the J37 you had iVTEC, you had the R series VTEC, and you had more. Does it now make sense why when you talk to a Honda guy or gal about this, you get a lot of information all at one time, and they're very proud to tell you exactly what version they actually have. And what made this special, because Honda wasn't necessarily the first one to try this type of system, was that they made it work with 2 completely different cam profiles, and it was really considered the first cam switching system on an engine platform that was reliably successful. The Acura NSX with the C30A motor was the first VTEC equipped vehicle available in the USA. It caught some serious wind, so much so other manufacturers copied it. Porsche introduced a version of continuous variable valve timing on the 968 with something called VarioCam, and I give that name a 7 out of 10. Okay, BMW would introduce Vanos, not Vamos, that's Spanish, in 1992, and of course BMW went all out and even did a double Vanos system, which a bunch of electronic wizardry, and made a terrible system. They made a great system, but it was unreliable. But the name, 9 out of 10. GM joined the fray 9 million years later in 2005 with a variable valve system for the pushrod LZE and LZ4. They didn't really have a name, so they get a 2 out of 10. All right, there you go, that's my rating. Daimler, Fiat, and more would also join the fray in this technology, but truly Honda was the company to pioneer the first successful VTEC system. They call it VTEC, you call it whatever you want. And people like you and people like me loved this thing, okay? Now imagine, it gave you good mileage, gas mileage at low speeds, but you freaking drop a gear bud, you let her eat, and you could hear the VTEC kick in, and there was a true notable increase in performance, and it was awesome. You drive an S2000, it feels crazy. You drive a GSR, it's nuts. An 8100 redline RPM and a 1.8 liter GSR sounded better than most supercars at the time, and they did it reliably. They did it consistently. But nowadays, if you look at like a 2017 Honda Civic Si, you'll see a turbocharged engine without Honda's fancy dancy VTEC that they touted for a very long time. Instead, you get VTC, which does not sound as cool as VTEC. And while you can still get VTEC models, it's just not really talked about anymore. So why? What happened? Will someone explain to me just what exactly happened to VTEC? That was staged as a question, but I made it a statement. A VTEC engine changed the game in horsepower per liter, and to keep reliability was no small feat. Its introduction was pretty much at the perfect time as the sport compact segment with the Prelude and the Del Sol really began to grow in the United States particularly, and is likely what cemented its success and massive outreach. You had companies like Hotsport and Hyundai to jump onto those platforms to truly make them special, fast, and pretty much scary as hell. So much so that once laptops got involved, people were out. Okay, VTEC truly started losing its muster though after everybody started to copy it. VTEC was a fascinating thing, but as competitors started to come in and try to do the same thing, the value proposition began to get compared to the likes of BMW and Fiat and so many more. Now, the Vanos system ain't gonna make you feel like you shit a brick when you're going into Watt in a GSR because of how it sounds, but to a lot of people that aren't really car enthusiasts, VTEC or Vanos or whatever you want to call it, all sounds like the silly same motor technology with marginal differences or improvements. You have the Porsche 911 that has it, the 370 has it, even Evo's, the Mitsubishi Evo and their MIVEC, their Maybach system had a variable camshaft timing or whatever it was, but it wasn't with the lift. They were all very similar, but you really had to be an expert to know the difference. And another reason is because the power plants that reigned in the day back then are just more available nowadays. Now let me explain. Back in the 90s, when it came to adding additional power, it was being done predominantly with the use of turbochargers, and it was a really expensive thing to do. The R&D was still relatively new. A lot of times, even doing it on an OE side, it didn't match Honda's cost structure and wouldn't solve the problems Honda was trying to solve for their customers. So when VTEC was introduced, it was one of the first of its kind that truly revolutionized the way to snag power out of a baby 4-cylinder or even a little V6. But with today's modern technology and medicine, I could easily live to be 135, 145 years old. I miss Talladega Nights.
Only thing you ever done with your life is make a hot daughter. That's it. That's it. That is it.
Honestly, over time, that technology that was once expensive, specifically with forced induction to get additional power and fuel economy, started to simply get more affordable and attainable by a wider variety of consumers, manufacturers, and even aftermarket applications. And nowadays, you have cars pushing out 300 horsepower out of a 4-cylinder turbo that was affordable off the lot, reliable, sure may come with a few lawsuits against the manufacturer, but it provides a ton of a bang for buck. And I mean, that's kind of the thing that sometimes pulls people away from understanding the VTEC and the shine that it used to have. Now, in my opinion, nothing seems to carry the same visceral energy and feel as some of the authentic VTEC systems of the mid-1990s. And there's plenty of mimickers out there, but none that have the quite same feeling as Honda. While the memes tarnish the idea a little bit, VTEC is truly an enjoyable technology that seems to be dying at the same speed of people's interest in old school muscle cars, which is honestly kind of sort of really sad. But what I can say is that my 12.5 compression turbocharged K-Series with VTEC is gonna sound like Gina Gershon whispering scream nothings into my ear until we blow a cylinder to the fucking moon. So I'm really excited for it, and I don't care if people make fun of VTEC because I think it's cool. But what do you think about VTEC? Is it overplayed or awesome if you've experienced it? Let us know in the comment section below, and of course, if you're looking for aftermarket wheels, tires, or suspension, be sure to hit us up over at fitmentindustries.com. If you notice my words per minute sped up, that's because we're filming this at 8 a.m. versus 7 a.m. and I've had more coffee. I'm Alex from Fitment Industries. We will see you later. Peace.